It's a bit windy here. I hope it's gonna be good. Since I was looking for a good location with a good connection, and ironically, here to my right side, behind me, is the famous municipality where a team of people pretty much ruined my lives with their incompetence and lack of professionalism. But leaving that aside, because I reported and spoke about it enough. What's been going on? Yeah, well, since November, December, when I had to go through some rough times again with people, and also the same municipality just mentioned, it was fun. Kidding. Christmas time, I went to Slovenia finally for a couple of weeks. It was really cool. That was quiet, had some rest. And then I returned to Netherlands per request of the government, and also because I felt like I do want to be close to my kids and stay close to them. Well, the first part was really funny because when I came here, there was another Slovenian woman older than me. She's lived here much longer. She said, "Oh yeah, I've got a spare space. I can share my apartment with you." Obviously, she only mentioned conditions about me being neat and quiet and stuff, and that's fine. So I arrived, all good. We sit down for the dinner. Everything seems to be okay, but already during the dinner, she starts to say, "Well, so this is what I want," which I suppose some contribution in money-wise would make sense. However, she does live on a non-profit or a social apartment, which means she gets some support from the government for that. And when I finally did the math of what she was saying, I would have paid for her rent and much more on top. But the catch was, so if I could afford at that time what she wanted in the end, 20 or more euros per day for staying there and using the washing machine, then I would have gone to a hostel and stayed in the hostels because it's almost the same. Given that on top she has some really disturbed neighbors who tend to lock their children in the room all alone at 6:30 in the morning and let them cry for about 45 minutes inconsolably. So that was kind of triggering for me in all ways, not just my childhood, but the fact that I was being accused of being a bad parent and a father, and I would have never done something like that to my kids. The max I would let them cry was about a minute, I guess. So yeah, I was a bit triggered by that, and in the morning, as I started asking whether anyone has ever bothered reporting this situation to the authorities and to the relevant people so they could help the child, well, I got the reaction by being yelled at and stuff, which, because clearly, yeah, there was trauma on her side from these people and all this kind of stuff, but it was all revolving around obviously her own needs and her own self. And I figured immediately from the past experience, red flags, better to pack and go. So that was my beginning of this year, a journey into it that started off back in Netherlands. After a couple of hostels and small hotel rooms, I remembered I met this strange guy before I went to Slovenia. He gave me his number. So I kind of pinged him. I said, "Let's go and grab a drink, see what's going on with you," because he definitely was in a different situation, needed some help. Hey, thanks, next. So the guy, heavy addict on alcohol and cocaine. Turns out he says he has a room. So what can I do? Take the risk, obviously. Went to meet him. He was already down by a liter of wine, I think. Then, not sure if by then he already had. Hi Leah, hi Parsa. Parsa, I'm just kind of reporting on how I've been the past half a year because there was a huge gap in my content and everything. For the reasons I'm just kind of stating and trying to explain. So, yeah, this guy through the course of the afternoon gets more drunk and more high. I'm trying to be mindful of all that and his past and also the triggers that may come with it, but deliriums with people like that are clearly somewhat inevitable. So it turns into a bit of a ruffle and scuffle. The cops actually appeared, so someone else called them, and they also then disappeared because neither of us reported anything further, so they had nothing to deal with. However, in about half an hour, the whole house goes silent. I look down through the small balcony and the cops are back. And as per their own words, they came back to speak to me. So I basically already knew the tricks that they're full of and everyone is full of. I smelled something fishy is going on, so I started to ask from the balcony, like, guys, please explain why you're here, articulate it, and if you're gonna make sense, then I'll come downstairs. Well, they insisted on me coming downstairs first, so I did, and within the same moment, one of the youngest cops became physical. I still don't remember exactly how I got out of his grip, but at the same time I also started really putting the foot down and yelling and not resisting anything. I had my hands up, but I demanded to speak to their supervisor immediately. Luckily, that guy was on spot. They all backed off, so nothing bad happened, and we started to communicate. Me, as pissed off as I was, in my own right, because I understood that everything from that point on is illegal detention and whatever they're going to do was going to be illegal and under some kind of false pretense. So they actually still explained, yeah, well, this guy sitting behind them in the bush crying like a little baby, so brave as he was before, attacking me and all, he accused me of attacking him with a hammer. And yeah, I must really say it, quote for quote. I yelled at the cops, I said, I've got time. Find the hammer, which there was none. And when you don't find my fingerprints on that hammer, then I'm gonna take it, shove it up that guy's ass, and yours is next. They did apologetically say that they still have to officially take me in, asked me to sit with them in the front, no handcuffs. I said, for now, that's respectful enough, I'm coming. We went to the station. About 45 minutes later, after some conundrum when they already said you're free to go, then locked the doors right back and let me wait for another 10 to 15 minutes, which definitely did not result in me being any happier. They did open the door. They said, we're really sorry about this. If you want to file complaints, blah, 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 you have the rights, da-da-dum. So they were really okay. And in the end, when they asked me where I'm going, and I said, well, how the hell do I know? But I do know one hostel which probably might be able to take me in so late, if nothing else, on their couch, because they are the kind of people and they're really nice. So I'm going there. The guys actually offered me a goddamn ride to the hostel. So I think at that point I finally figured that something's gonna start changing in my life. That the people who accuse me of stuff I didn't do, exaggerate the things I did do, are gonna start to pay their price one way or another, and that sooner or later things are gonna start to have to turn better for me. And yeah, after about 4 weeks of suffering in a couple of different hostels and seriously quickly running out of any kind of cash I've had left and the low income that I have with the support, everything was kind of starting to look really bleak again. And then this old friend of mine, we've known each other for about 25 years, I think. We were together in the squads. He still plays in the same band for all these years. So I even wrote 1 or 2 songs for that band or helped write some lyrics. So it was a very old buddy who knows quite a lot what I've been through in the past and understood really well what I'm actually going through. He calls me up and he says, dude, whatever you've got, get on the bus, go to Brussels, come to a safe space. And those words, they sounded like words from heaven. It started to change. The first thing when I got there, I had this warm shower and I was just shaking. My whole body was shaking. It was the weirdest sensation I've ever had, like a release of massive tension. It was far from over, but at that time I knew I've got about a month or so. I had 2 months of rest. I did nothing but walking his chihuahua. Chula, you're the best therapist ever. And I really don't like chihuahuas or small dogs, but Chula is amazing. And my friend Emir, he's the best, one of the best people I've ever met in my life. And some of those that are like him are gone. So yeah, it saved me. It saved my bloody ass. And then I came straight back to Holland. This place is amazing. And I'm not giving many compliments here. So I went to work at the beach club, which I will not name for their own sake and because I'm still a gentleman. But my expectation was to stay there with them, do all sorts of kind of maintenance, heavy work, beach beds every day, and make sure that the pub and the stuff outside is prepared with all the beach beds and the cushions. And we're talking several dozens beach beds for sure. At the max I put out about 30 of them in a day. And lots of other work. So every day when I was working was at least 10 hours, sometimes even 16. They promised food, they promised an accommodation that would be okay, which meant a container on the beach. But the container that I got, on top of the fact that they had an isolated container with a room already equipped for living, that they just didn't want to share because maybe they're going to use it with the kids, maybe. But at that time, for those 2 months, they did not. I was sleeping in a leaky, rusty, non-isolated container that also picked up quite a lot of sand all the time. So yeah, there was some damage to my clothes, a bit of damage to my old broken laptop, stuff like that. So when it came to the promises of having enough of food every day to cope with all that hard work, there definitely was no consistency in delivery on that part. First payment was coming really late, did not come in full. Some of the cash they were supposed to pay me for the beach beds didn't get paid because it was always supposed to be paid the same day or the next day. Some of the stuff like that. So, and funny and oddly enough, these people had so much to tell me, as in teach me how to listen better, how to be a team player and stuff. Of course, in a new team, things are new. People are new, they have their own habits, everyone has got their own quirks and shit. And we gotta kind of learn how to communicate and deal with each other. But this just wasn't it. It was a one-way street. Plus on top of the fact that I accepted half less of the payment in cash than I would expect for all that work. So yeah, that was just not gonna go well. And about now it's almost a week ago, it was a moment of intense weekend again, a lot of work. Things were happening in the same process again, same pattern. But this time I started to tell them, look, if this is gonna go this way, we have to have a conversation about food, about the conditions and about everything here. Funny enough, immediately everything starts to turn into blame shifting, guilt tripping, hi Leonie, and all this kind of stuff that is basically just egocentric or narcissistic behavior. And I was surprised myself even how calm I was and also composed. I responded with a few smart things, left, then with messages on WhatsApp, I basically opened up my microphone and dropped it really heavy on the floor once I was done. The next day I came back to collect my cash. It was kind of still leaving them off with a couple of probably about 50 to 100 euros of pocket change in their hands. But at least I made my point that I'm not going to be messed around with, and you're just going to play your power games. You go into the power game, then you're going to find out how powerless you are. And that's it. So I shut them up, took my money and left. So yeah, found myself kind of back on my butt again, but at least this time I know I'm strong, I'm motivated. I've survived the hell of the last 2 months in the sand and hot or shitty weather and working really hard, which I didn't think after all this burnout and still not properly recovered I could do it. But what did really help is I was lucky. I got once a week Thai massages, which were for free. It was like a burnout recovery program, funny enough. So at the same time, while I was coping with the new level of physical burnout, I also had some recovery once a week. And it was probably more efficient because it was in a small group of people who are also suffering from burnout and trauma and stuff. So yeah, it helps. Massages, and it's not the fun part, it's like or happy ending for sure. It's really painful. The Thai massage is actually very painful. It goes deep into your tissue, finds those knots and the stiff and the really painful and injured parts of your body and digs deep into it. Hurts like hell, but once it gets into that, there's a lot of physical stuff that really improves itself, and on an emotional level, the release and everything is just amazing. So yeah, I'm very grateful for the good things that have happened in the meantime. Lesson about myself that I'm physically strong as hell, that I'm able to actually push through all this, and that I'm gonna keep going. Recently, when I started reapplying and looking for jobs more down my experience and the skill set level from the past and the skills that I can transfer, I had a really cool call, really interesting call. I had a recruiter calling me saying, all right, these are the kind of jobs I've got available. This is not for you because you don't speak professional level of Dutch and stuff like that. So she was really honest and very respectful, and that's what the transparency level of this lady was one of a kind. And then she asks me finally what are my expectations, and I said something lower than I should have anyway, knowing that, because I just want to get a damn job at the moment. And she stopped me immediately. She said, dude, you gotta start with at least 7,000 per month. That's how much you're worth. This is how much your profile is worth. And I must say, she knocked me off the chair, because that's the number I've had in my mind for a long time. But I just did not have the level of confidence after being out of work for so long and being through all the hell that I've been through. I figured, how can I even pick up the slack? But now I see there is no slack to pick up. I'm still here, stronger than I ever thought I was, happier. Stuff that should have been getting me angry doesn't even touch me. Not that I didn't recently raise my voice or told someone to fuck off, I did. But it's been enough when your buttons and triggers have been pushed intentionally, and then also because of the people's lack of maturity and awareness for so long. You don't have to put up with them. Kindness is not being nice to people and all this stuff. When they are crossing your limits and literally themselves using vulgarity and insults to speak to you and at you, well, then I guess all gloves are off. I just wish that sometimes when it comes to certain part of the human population, which is the liars, the hypocrites and abusers, wouldn't be able to use the system to their own advantage so heavy as they do. That it would have actually been more fair. And it doesn't matter whether it's a woman or a man. There's, on both sides, such a load of people who just don't want to drop their masks and their games and stuff, and they keep playing with people's emotions and they keep playing their own silly little games. And at some point it all has to stop. So yeah, and it doesn't stop with changing anything about them. You change your attitude and then suddenly they fall off like leaves. They can't handle the pressure. They can't handle the honesty and the real life. So yeah, 6 months into 2025, survived a couple of things, but then it started to turn out better. Still, at the moment, probably I'm gonna survive the next part of this month in a camp, in a tent. I sold my boat, not for any kind of money that I would want, but it was also just an expense. It was very hard. It was the one thing that was really hard to do this time, selling my boat. Last year when I parked it in the harbor and had to leave it behind so I could start sorting my stuff out, I thought that the winter and the storms are gonna damage it badly and there's gonna be a lot more repairs to do, and when I came back the boat was literally waiting for me in the same shape as I left it. It kind of broke my heart a bit. But yeah, life teaches you lessons. Sometimes you shouldn't assume too much and just go and check it out. Yeah, I've still got a lot to try and get through, but at least I see it from a much different perspective now. And I'm glad that even when life comes with another unpredictable punch and, well, predictably shitty people, it didn't throw me off the balance this time and too far into survival mode. I got pissed off. I'm sick of these people. I'm tired of their behavior, but that's it. I can breathe again. And yeah, that's about my report on the gap and the reasons why I couldn't keep making content and stuff. I just really needed all this time, space and headspace to really finally come back to my proper self. With all the triggers and all the stuff going on, it's really cool to see that some of the people who have been around me for like 10, 20 years or more, they can see the changes and they confirmed that I'm doing well, especially in the given circumstances. And one of the best and most compassionate people in the recent months is actually my parole officer for the old court case where I had to defend myself. That lady is amazing. I mean, as much as she can't do anything much for me to help when it comes to any sort of proper accommodation for a person like myself, she at least confirmed with her own words that she admires my perseverance and that I'm a great person. And I'm not bragging about myself, I'm really just quoting what she said. For me, that's still a humiliating and humbling experience to get such a compliment from someone with her profession. And as she said, I'm one of her easiest clients in her whole career, or the easiest actually. It doesn't come as a surprise, but it teaches me to value myself better, to really give myself enough of worth and appreciation and self-validation, because I don't need it from others. But it's really nice when it still comes from there. So that's about it for now. I'm still gonna keep trying, given the fact that in the camp the connection is shitty. I could definitely go live from there or make more recordings and patch up some more edits and videos, but then the upload takes forever if it does even finish. I must, for the end of this, and whoever's stuck to the end for the live, and then whoever's gonna be watching any of this until the end, some of the people here, probably I suck at the moment because I didn't write down your names and stuff, But there's a lot of people, and those of you who came to say hi here on the stream, thanks a lot. My followers here, subscribers, I really appreciate those few of you who have stood by for me for now quite a long time, cheered me up, supported me, gave me some food for thought when I was really down. Especially the fact that all of us have been in the trenches, and maybe some of us are still deep in the trenches. I really thank you all so much for the support, for your kindness, for everything. Even for the love that sometimes I feel from so far. I really feel it, not just in the words that you say, but I feel that it matters. Never mind how many times I'm still gonna fall on the ground and face down and in my shit. It matters. It matters to me, and I'm glad it matters to others as well. And I cannot be more grateful, because at the end of the day, it's my kids that motivate me the most. Myself, obviously, but ultimately, I hope that my survival here will actually serve as help and some sort of guidance to others. Gratitude is really something that works. And I'm glad I can be grateful for the little things. The other day there was a conversation here in the chat that started off a little bit hostile against men. Yeah, men can be shit, but not all men are bad. Women can be shit, but not all women are bad. And the conversation usually ends up in a bad tone, but that one was really something else, refreshing. Because the person behind that profile turned around and said, okay, I checked your profile. I see that you have really good intentions, and I wish you all well. And it really warmed my heart. And that's the person I want to thank especially for the finish today. The rest of you, again, Nex, Parsa, Leon, hi to you again. Thanks to all of you. I hope you enjoy following my real life stories instead of brags about any kind of how rich people get and shit, or any AI videos, which I also tend to despise lately. I think YouTube really needs to focus a little bit more on the real stories and real life people, because we have a lot to share between each other, for each other. And whatever works for me might not work for everyone, but it might work for someone else, you know. Go walk out in the nature more often, go get a massage if you can get one. Find if there's something you can find for free like that. Join a group of people who are going through the same stuff, you know. It doesn't have to be regular, it doesn't have to be a lot, but just kind of try it. Get out of your comfort zone, see where it gets you. For me, I realized that the more you are in the same spot, doing the same thing, it's gonna weigh you down. Especially in circumstances like this, when you're in the survival, not in survival mode, but in your actual survival, and you're rebuilding your life from scratch. Just keep going. You're not alone. And if you need someone to talk to, I'm always here. We talk in the comments, we talk otherwise. That's why I'm grateful for all of you. Have a nice rest of the weekend. Ciao. And peace.